You will be replaced again. Not because you're not enough, not because you're unlovable, but because you still don't understand the game you're playing. They didn't lose feelings, they lost control. And when they can't control you, they replace you. And if you don't fix this, it will happen again. And the reason why is not what you think. It always starts the same way. You meet someone, they're intense, attentive, consistent. You think, finally, I've found the one. They text first, they plan dates, they say things that feel intentional, and then something shifts. The replies slow down, the energy changes, the warmth fades. You keep saying to yourself, maybe I'm overreacting, maybe they're just stressed, maybe I'm asking for too much. So you adjust, you shrink, you become easier to keep. And then one day, you see them give someone else everything you begged for. And this is where most people tell themselves the wrong story. But here's what you still don't see. You don't fall for people, you fall for potential. You fall for intensity. And intensity is not intimacy. Here's what is actually happening in your brain. Psychologically, it's love bombing, and it creates dopamine spikes. Fast bonding feels like destiny. Trauma bonding feels like chemistry. But when someone overwhelms you with attention, it's not depth, it's acceleration. And anything that moves that fast can exit just as fast. Be honest, did they promise forever in the first month? And the most dangerous part, you mistake anxiety for connection. You weren't replaced because you were boring. You were replaced because you tolerated confusion. You accepted inconsistency. You excused emotional unavailability. You over-communicated while they under-invested. They tested your standards. You lowered them. They tested your boundaries. You moved them. The truth is, you weren't too much. You were just too available. And people don't value what's always accessible. But here's the part most people don't want to hear. You are not being replaced because you are not enough. You are being replaced because you are predictable in the dynamic. This is the part most people never see. The real reason you keep getting replaced. It's not about them. It's about the role you unconsciously accept. 1. You enter relationships trying to prove value. You over-explain. You over-forgive. You over-understand. You over-accommodate. You try to be the safe one, the mature one, the patient one, the fixer. But when you do this repeatedly, you silently communicate, I will work for love. And people who seek power, not genuine connection, detect that instantly. 2. You mistake intensity for investment. They move fast, deep talks, future plans, strong chemistry, and you instantly think, this is different. But intensity is not commitment, it's just stimulation. And people addicted to stimulation cannot sustain stability. Once the emotional high stabilizes, they interpret calm as boredom. So they look for the next emotional spike. You weren't replaced, you were the last high. 3. You confuse potential with reality. You see them not for who they truly are, but for who they could be. You attach to the version of them that shows up 20% of the time, not the consistent pattern. When someone shows inconsistency early and you stay, you train them. You teach them, I will tolerate instability. So when they leave, it feels sudden, but the instability was always there. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, keep listening. The real pattern hasn't even appeared yet. 4. You derive worth from being chosen. This is the uncomfortable one. If being chosen makes you feel safe, loved, and valuable, then losing them feels like losing your identity. You're trying to be chosen instead of choosing. So when they pull away, you chase. When you chase, you lower the power dynamic. And once power shifts back to them, they lose respect for you. Not because you are weak, but because the dynamic returned to imbalance. When you think love is something you earn, you keep performing, and performers get replaced, because once the performance stops, there's nothing holding the illusion together. 5. Your nervous system is addicted to uncertainty. Healthy love feels steady, predictable, safe, calm, and often, calm is confused as boring. If you grew up in environments where affection was earned or stability had to be managed, calm feels unfamiliar. Unfamiliar feels boring. So you gravitate toward volatility, then call it chemistry, then call it connection. Then, when things collapse, you call it bad luck. But it isn't bad luck, it's pattern recognition failure. You don't keep getting replaced. You keep choosing people who rotate partners to regulate their ego. They don't stay because they feel safe. They stay because they feel superior. And the moment you equalize power, they exit. Because they were never building intimacy. They were maintaining advantage. But this still isn't the deepest reason. The real pattern is more uncomfortable than people expect. 6. You haven't detached from the fantasy of being the exception. You still tell yourself, I'll be better than their exes. If I love them better, they'll stay. I'll be the one who changes them. But most people don't treat the next partner better. They repeat the same dynamics. You are not their therapist. You cannot heal them. You cannot force them to grow. Healing is a decision they make alone. And as long as you want to be the exception, you will repeat the same pattern. When you stop trying to fix people and start choosing differently, the cycle breaks. And when you're replaced, find peace in this. They're not better, they're newer. And this is where people misunderstand everything. Novelty feeds the ego. New attention feels like oxygen to someone addicted to validation. A new partner hasn't seen the contradictions, hasn't asked the hard questions, hasn't recognized the pattern. They see charm, they see intensity, they see potential. They don't yet see reality. It's easier to start over than to grow up. Growth requires reflection. Reflection requires discomfort. Discomfort requires humility. Starting over requires none of that. So they choose new. Not because you lacked anything, but because new feels lighter than repair. But patterns repeat. They always do. This is where your power actually returns. When you begin treating behavior as information instead of a challenge to overcome, everything changes. You slow down. You observe. You let actions accumulate before you invest. You remain warm, but you stay aware. And people who depend on imbalance feel unsettled around you. Some leave early. Let them. Early exits are protection. Because someone serious about building something real does not fear pace. They respect it. The right person doesn't need persuasion to value you. They rise to meet you. That's what matching feels like. Calm, balanced, steady. Desire with discipline. You stop measuring worth by reaction. You measure alignment by consistency. And once you experience steady effort, you'll realize something powerful. You were never being replaced because you lacked something. You were participating in dynamics that rewarded instability. The elevation is this: you don't shrink to be kept. You refine to be aligned. You slow down. You observe. You protect your emotional investment. And when someone cannot meet you there, you step back. Because the right person isn't searching for someone easier. They're searching for someone equal. Before you close this video, there's one final shift you need to hear. When your mind asks, what did they have that I didn't? Why could they give them what I asked for? Why does this keep happening? The answer is uncomfortable. You weren't lacking. You were over-functioning in dynamics where control mattered more than connection. And once you stop chasing clarity from people who benefit from confusion, everything changes. You stop guessing. You stop decoding. You stop proving. You observe. You assess. You decide. And that energy changes everything. Because decisive people aren't replaced. They're respected. You stop entering rooms hoping to be chosen. You enter knowing you are evaluating. That's the shift. That's the protection. That's the standard. People don't replace that. They respect it.